You're not overwhelmed because life is chaotic. You're overwhelmed because your mind is untrained. Most people suffer not from what happens, but from how they interpret it. Stoicism teaches one thing above all: you control your experience. Not by changing the world, but by changing your mind. These 7 principles aren't tricks, they're tools. Tools to calm the storm, build discipline, and reclaim peace. You won't eliminate problems, but you will eliminate unnecessary suffering. That's the promise of Stoic living. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind. And tell us, where are you watching from? Peace begins the moment you stop arguing with what you can't control. Listen to me carefully. Right now, in this moment, you are wasting enormous amounts of energy on things that will never bend to your will. The weather, other people's opinions, the past, traffic, the economy, your boss's mood, your neighbor's politics. You exhaust yourself fighting battles you cannot win. I learned this truth during my years as emperor. Rome faced plagues, wars, betrayals. I could have spent every moment raging against circumstances beyond my reach. Instead, I asked myself one question that changed everything. What here is actually mine to control? The answer was smaller than I expected and more powerful. You control your thoughts. You control your responses. You control your effort. You control your character. That's it. Everything else belongs to the world. But here's what most people don't understand. This isn't about giving up. This is about focusing your power where it actually works. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, something remarkable happens. You discover you have complete dominion over the only territory that truly matters: your inner world. The storm outside continues, but inside, you become unshakable. Think about your current struggles. How much of your stress comes from fighting things you cannot change? How much mental energy do you waste on outcomes beyond your influence? A Stoic makes a different choice. We draw a clear line. On one side, what I can control. On the other side, what I cannot. We pour all our attention into the first. We release the second completely. Your colleague takes credit for your work. You cannot control their dishonesty, but you can control how you respond. With dignity, with continued excellence, with the knowledge that integrity protects itself. Your investment loses money. You cannot control the market, but you can control your preparation for next time, your research, your patience, your refusal to panic. Someone you love makes choices that hurt them. You cannot control their decisions, but you can control your support, your boundaries, your own example of better living. This practice requires constant vigilance. The mind naturally wants to control everything. It believes this will bring security. It's wrong. Security comes from accepting what you cannot control and mastering what you can. Every morning I would write to myself, today I will encounter interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. But I won't be surprised or disturbed, for I can't imagine a world without such people. I prepared my mind for what I could not control. Then I focused entirely on what I could. My responses, my choices, my character. You have the same power. Use it. When anxiety rises, ask yourself, is this something I can actually influence? If yes, take action. If no, let it go. Completely. When anger flares, pause. Can I control what triggered this? Usually not. Can I control how I respond? Always. When fear grips you, examine it. Am I afraid of something within my power to change? Then change it. Am I afraid of something beyond my reach? Then accept it. This is not passive resignation. This is strategic focus. You become like water flowing around obstacles, finding the path of least resistance while maintaining unstoppable momentum toward your goals. The world will always be chaotic. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Unexpected problems will arise. But you will remain centered, focused, unshaken. Because you stopped fighting the wrong battles and started winning the only one that matters. The battle for your own mind. You are allowed to feel, but you're not allowed to obey every feeling. Most People live as slaves to their emotions. They feel angry, so they lash out. They feel afraid, so they retreat. They feel jealous, so they attack. They have handed over control of their lives to whatever emotion happens to be strongest in the moment. This is not strength. This is weakness disguised as authenticity. A Stoic understands something profound about emotions. They are information, not instructions. They tell you something is happening. They don't tell you what to do about it. When I ruled Rome, I felt anger many times. Senators who betrayed trust, generals who disobeyed orders, citizens who complained about necessary hardships. The anger was real. The feeling was valid, but I did not let the anger decide my actions. Anger told me something required attention. It did not tell me to punish rashly or speak harshly. Those decisions came from reason, not emotion. You feel anxious about a presentation. The anxiety is information. It tells you this matters to you. It tells you to prepare well. It does not tell you to avoid the presentation or panic during it. You feel disappointed when someone cancels plans. The disappointment is information. It tells you the plans mattered to you. It tells you to value relationships. It does not tell you to guilt-trip them or take it personally. You feel excited about a new opportunity. The excitement is information. It tells you this aligns with your values. It tells you to pay attention. It does not tell you to abandon all caution or make impulsive decisions. Here's what most people don't understand about emotional mastery. You don't eliminate feelings. You don't suppress them. You don't pretend they don't exist. You acknowledge them. You listen to them. Then you choose your response. Between feeling and action lies a space. In that space lives your freedom. Most people collapse this space. They feel, then immediately react. The emotion becomes the action without any pause for wisdom. A Stoic expands this space. We feel the emotion fully. We understand what it's telling us. Then we ask, what is the wisest response here? What action aligns with my principles? What choice will I respect tomorrow? This takes practice. The mind has spent years learning to react instantly to feelings. Breaking this pattern requires conscious effort. Start small. When you feel irritated by slow internet, pause. Acknowledge the irritation. Ask yourself, what is this feeling telling me? That I value efficiency, good information. Now, what's the wisest response? Patience while it loads, or finding something productive to do while waiting. When you feel envious of someone's success, pause. Acknowledge the envy. Ask yourself, what is this feeling telling me? That I want similar achievements, good information. Now, what's the wisest response? Use their success as inspiration and motivation, not as ammunition for resentment. When you feel overwhelmed by responsibilities, pause. Acknowledge the overwhelm. Ask yourself, what is this feeling telling me? That I care about doing things well, good information. Now, what's the wisest response? Prioritize ruthlessly and tackle one task at a time. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become emotionally intelligent, to let feelings inform your decisions without controlling them. Some of my most important choices as emperor came from this practice. I felt compassion for suffering citizens, which informed policies to help them. But I didn't let compassion cloud my judgment about what would actually work. I felt frustration with incompetent officials, which informed my decision to replace them. But I didn't let frustration make me cruel or hasty in how I handled their removal. I felt grief when Marcus Annius Verus, my adopted brother, died young. The grief told me how much he meant to me. But I didn't let grief paralyze me or make me bitter about the nature of life. Every emotion carries wisdom. Fear often points to what you value most. Anger often reveals where your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness often shows you what you've lost or what you're missing, but emotions are terrible decision makers. They see only the immediate moment. They don't consider consequences. They don't weigh options. They don't align with your deeper values. That's your job. That's what makes you human instead of animal. Animals react to emotions instantly. Humans can choose their responses. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you become reliable. People can count on you to respond wisely, not just emotionally. When someone is angry with you, you don't automatically become defensive. You pause. You listen to what their anger is telling them. Then you respond with what will actually help the situation. When you feel disappointed by an outcome, you don't automatically become pessimistic. You pause. You listen to what your disappointment is telling you about your expectations. Then you adjust your approach for next time. When you feel proud of an achievement, you don't automatically become arrogant. You pause. You listen to what your pride is telling you about your values. Then you use that energy to pursue the next worthwhile goal. You become the captain of your emotional ship, not its passenger. The storms still come, the winds still blow, but you navigate with wisdom, not just instinct. This is how you build a life you can respect, not by avoiding difficult emotions, but by responding to them with intelligence and principle. You become what you think. Master the mind and you master the moment. Right now, your thoughts are creating your reality, not the external circumstances, not what happened to you yesterday, not what might happen tomorrow. Your thoughts about all of these things. Two people experience the same setback. One thinks, this is proof I'm not meant to succeed. The other thinks, this is valuable feedback showing me what to adjust. Same event, completely different realities. Your mind is the most powerful tool you possess. But most people treat it like a neglected garden, letting any thought take root and grow wild. A Stoic cultivates their thoughts like a master gardener. We plant what serves us. We remove what doesn't. We tend to our mental landscape with daily attention. When I sat in council meetings as emperor, I watched senators let their thoughts run chaotic. One would think, everyone is against me. Another would think, this problem is impossible to solve. Their thoughts shaped their experience of the same meeting. Their effectiveness suffered accordingly. I learned to monitor my own thinking patterns. When facing a difficult decision, I would notice if my mind started generating catastrophic scenarios. Then I would redirect more useful thoughts. What information do I need? What are my options? What outcome serves Rome best? This isn't positive thinking. This is precise thinking. You don't lie to yourself about reality. You choose which aspects of reality to focus on and how to interpret them. The traffic jam isn't good or bad. It simply is. You can think, this is ruining my day and making me late for everything that matters. Or you can think, this is extra time to listen to that podcast I've been meaning to catch up on. Same traffic, different thoughts, different experience. The criticism from your manager isn't devastating or insignificant. It's information. You can think, they hate my work and I'm probably going to get fired. Or you can think, they're showing me specifically how to improve, which means they're invested in my success. Same criticism, different thoughts, different response. But here's what most people don't understand about thought mastery. It's not about forcing positivity. It's about choosing accuracy. Catastrophic thinking is usually inaccurate. It assumes the worst possible interpretation of ambiguous events. It predicts outcomes you cannot possibly know. Precise thinking sticks to what you actually know. It considers multiple interpretations. It focuses on what you can influence. When anxiety starts building stories about future disasters, a Stoic asks, what do I actually know to be true right now? What assumptions am I making? What evidence supports or contradicts these thoughts? When anger starts building cases about how unfairly you've been treated, a Stoic asks, what role did I play in this situation? What can I learn from it? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my principles? When sadness starts convincing you that things will never improve, a Stoic asks, have I been through difficult times before and recovered? What resources do I have now? What small step can I take today? This practice transforms everything. You stop being a victim of random mental events. You become the curator of your own consciousness. Every morning I would remind myself, today, I will encounter disappointments, frustrations, and obstacles. My initial thoughts about these events will likely be emotional and unhelpful. My job is to examine these thoughts and choose better ones. The untrained mind defaults to worry, complaint, and blame. These thoughts feel natural because they're habits, but habits can be changed. Start paying attention to your automatic thoughts. When something goes wrong, what's your mind's first interpretation? When someone disagrees with you, what story does your mind immediately create about their motives? Most people never notice these automatic patterns. They just experience the emotions that follow and assume those emotions reflect reality. You have a choice. You can think thoughts that make you feel helpless or thoughts that make you feel capable. You can think thoughts that increase your stress or thoughts that increase your clarity. The key is repetition. Every time you catch an unhelpful thought and replace it with a more accurate one, you strengthen your mental discipline. Instead of, "Why does this always happen to me?" Try, "What can I learn from this situation?" instead of, "They're probably judging me." Try, "I don't know what they're thinking, and it's not my business anyway." Instead of, "I'm terrible at this." Try, "I'm still learning this skill." These aren't empty affirmations. They're more accurate descriptions of reality. Your thoughts about the past shape whether you feel bitter or wise. Your thoughts about the future shape whether you feel anxious or prepared. Your thoughts about other people shape whether you feel threatened or curious. You cannot control what happens around you, but you have complete authority over the thoughts you choose to think about what happens. This is not easy work. The mind has momentum. It wants to keep thinking the same types of thoughts it's always thought. But with consistent practice, you can train your mind like you train your body, gradually, progressively, with patience and persistence. Some thoughts serve your growth, others sabotage it. Some thoughts increase your peace, others destroy it. Some thoughts connect you to your best self. Others disconnect you from everything good. Choose accordingly. The world you experience tomorrow will be largely determined by the thoughts you think today. Make them worthy of the life you want to build. Stop fighting life. Resistance adds pain. Acceptance restores power. You are suffering right now, not because of what's happening, but because you're arguing with what's happening. The meeting ran long. You wanted it to end on time. The gap between reality and your preference creates frustration. Your friend canceled plans. You wanted them to keep their commitment. The gap between what happened and what you expected creates disappointment. Your project hit unexpected obstacles. You wanted smooth progress. The gap between the current situation and your desired situation creates stress. Most of human suffering comes from this resistance to what is. But here's what most people don't understand about acceptance. It's not passive resignation. It's not giving up. It's not pretending problems don't exist. Acceptance is the starting point of all effective action. When I led Rome through plagues and wars, I had to accept the reality of each crisis before I could respond effectively. If I spent my energy wishing the plague wasn't happening, I had no energy left to organize medical responses. If I spent my time complaining about enemy strategies, I couldn't develop counter-strategies. Acceptance gave me clarity. Resistance would have given me only frustration. You cannot solve problems you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot improve situations you're too busy resenting to understand clearly. The weather is what it is. You can waste energy being angry about rain, or you can grab an umbrella and continue with your day. Your boss has the personality they have. You can exhaust yourself wishing they were different, or you can learn to work effectively with who they actually are. Your family has the dynamics they have. You can spend every gathering fighting reality, or you can accept the limitations and find ways to connect within them. This doesn't mean you never try to create change. It means you start from truth instead of fantasy. Truth, this project is behind schedule. Fantasy, this project should be where I wanted it to be by now. Starting from truth, you can assess what went wrong, adjust timelines, allocate additional resources, or communicate new expectations to stakeholders. Starting from fantasy, you just feel frustrated and blame circumstances for not matching your preferences. Truth, this relationship has problems that need addressing. Fantasy, this relationship should be effortless and perfect. Starting from truth, you can have honest conversations, work on specific issues, or make difficult decisions about compatibility. Starting from fantasy, you just feel disappointed and blame your partner for not being who you wanted them to be. The moment you stop arguing with reality, you can start working with it. I learned this lesson during the Antonine Plague. I could have spent years raging about how unfair it was that my reign included such devastation. Instead, I accepted that this was my reality and focused entirely on effective responses. The plague was happening whether I liked it or not. My preferences were irrelevant. My actions were everything. When you accept what is, you stop wasting energy on impossible tasks, like changing the past or controlling other people's choices. You redirect that energy toward what you can actually influence. But let me ask you this. How much of your mental energy right now is tied up in resistance? How much time do you spend thinking about how things should be different instead of working with how they actually are? Most people live in constant low-level conflict with reality. They wake up wishing they felt more energetic. They sit in traffic, wishing it moved faster. They go to work wishing their job were different. They come home wishing their family were more appreciative. This chronic resistance creates chronic stress. You're fighting battles all day long, and most of them are unwinnable. A Stoic makes a different choice. We accept the starting point of every situation completely. Then we ask, given that this is the reality, what's the most constructive response? Your car breaks down. Full acceptance. This has happened. The car is not working. I am currently stranded. Constructive response. Call. For help, arrange alternative transportation, research repair options. You receive harsh feedback at work. Full acceptance. This person has these concerns about my performance. They have chosen to express them directly. This is now part of my work situation. Constructive response. Listen carefully, ask clarifying questions, create an improvement plan. You get sick during an important week. Full acceptance. My body is currently fighting illness. My energy is limited. Some plans will need to change. Constructive response. Rest appropriately. Delegate what can be delegated. Reschedule what can be rescheduled. Notice the difference. No energy wasted on wishing things were different. All energy directed toward effective action. This practice requires constant vigilance. The mind naturally rebels against unwanted realities. It wants to spend time in alternate universes where things worked out differently. But you live in this universe, the one where things happen as they happen, not as you prefer them to happen. Every moment you spend in resistance is a moment you could have spent in productive response. Every ounce of energy you waste fighting. What cannot be changed is energy you could have used improving what can be changed. This is not about becoming passive. This is about becoming strategic. You engage fully with reality instead of partially with fantasy. When disappointment arises, you feel it completely. Then you accept what disappointed you and focus on next steps. When obstacles appear, you acknowledge them clearly. Then you accept their presence and look for ways around, under, over, or through them. When people behave in ways you didn't expect, you observe their actual behavior. Then you accept who they're showing themselves to be and adjust your approach. Accordingly, life is not about getting what you want. Life is about responding wisely to what you get. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you can start building something meaningful with the materials actually available to you. You can't guarantee results, but you can guarantee your integrity. Most people attach their peace of mind to outcomes they cannot control. The promotion they might not get, the relationship that might not work out, the investment that might not pay off, the recognition that might never come. This is why most people live in constant anxiety. They've made their emotional well-being dependent on results that exist outside their direct influence. A Stoic chooses differently. We attach our peace of mind to something we control completely, our character. You can control whether you prepare thoroughly for the interview. You cannot control whether they hire you. You can control whether you treat your partner with respect and kindness. You cannot control whether they choose to stay. You can control whether you make wise financial decisions. You cannot control market fluctuations. You can control whether you do excellent work. You cannot control whether others notice or appreciate it. When I ruled Rome, I could control the quality of my decisions. I could not control whether every policy succeeded. I could control my dedication to justice. I could not control whether every citizen appreciated it. This distinction freed me from outcomes-based anxiety. My job was to be a good emperor, not to guarantee that every aspect of the empire flourished perfectly. Some problems were beyond any emperor's power to solve. Some citizens would remain unhappy regardless of policies. Some external threats would persist despite military efforts. But I could wake up every day and choose wisdom over ignorance, justice over favoritism, courage over cowardice, discipline over indulgence. These choices were mine to make. No external force could prevent me from acting with virtue. Here's what most people don't understand about this approach. Focusing on virtue instead of outcomes doesn't reduce your chances of success. It increases them. When you're anxious about results, your performance suffers. You make decisions based on fear instead of wisdom. You hold back effort to protect yourself from disappointment. You sacrifice long-term integrity for short-term advantage. When you focus on virtue, your performance improves. You make decisions based on principle instead of panic. You give full effort because your self-respect doesn't depend on external validation. You build sustainable success through consistent, excellent choices. The paradox of virtue is this: caring less about specific outcomes makes you more likely to achieve good outcomes. You prepare for the presentation not because you need to impress everyone, but because thorough preparation is the right thing to do. You treat difficult customers with patience not because it guarantees their satisfaction, but because patience aligns with your values. You work diligently on projects not because you need credit, but because diligence is its own reward. This shift changes everything. You stop living at the mercy of other people's decisions, market conditions, or circumstances beyond your control. Your confidence comes from knowing you'll handle whatever happens with integrity. Your peace comes from knowing you're building something that cannot be taken away, a character you can respect. But let me ask you this: what outcomes are you currently attached to? What results do you think you need in order to feel successful or happy? A specific income level? A particular relationship status? Recognition from certain people? Achievement of specific goals? All of these may happen, or they may not. Attaching your emotional well-being to uncertain outcomes is a recipe for chronic stress. Instead, ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be, regardless of what happens? What principles do I want to embody, whether I succeed or fail by external measures? Honest, even when honesty doesn't guarantee advantage. Compassionate, even when compassion isn't reciprocated. Courageous, even when courage doesn't ensure victory. Disciplined, even when discipline doesn't produce immediate rewards. These are choices you can make every day. No one can prevent you from being virtuous. No circumstance can force you to compromise your character. This doesn't mean you stop working toward goals. It means you judge yourself by the quality of your effort, not the guarantee of specific results. You apply for opportunities not because you're entitled to them, but because pursuing growth aligns with your values. You invest in relationships, not because others owe you reciprocation, but because connection and care are worthwhile in themselves. You develop skills not because mastery is guaranteed, but because learning and improvement serve your development as a person. The outcome becomes a bonus, not a requirement for self-respect. When success comes, you receive it with gratitude, but not desperation. When failure comes, you accept it with disappointment, but not devastation. Your core remains stable because it's based on something you control completely. This is how you build unshakable confidence, not by guaranteeing external results, but by guaranteeing internal consistency. People who measure themselves only by outcomes live on an emotional roller coaster. Good results make them feel temporarily superior. Bad results make them feel fundamentally flawed. People who measure themselves by virtue live on stable ground. They know that regardless of what happens, they can respect the person they're choosing. To be each day, the world will always include uncertainty. Markets will fluctuate. People will make unpredictable choices. Plans will encounter obstacles. But your character, that remains constant by your choice. When everything else feels unstable, virtue becomes your anchor. When external validation disappears, integrity becomes your foundation. This is not about lowering your standards or expecting less from life. This is about raising your standards for the one thing you control completely: yourself. Choose virtue over outcome, not because outcomes don't matter, but because virtue is the only reliable path to outcomes you can actually respect. Whatever blocks your path, use it. Turn resistance into fuel. The thing standing in your way is not your enemy. It's your teacher. Most people see obstacles as problems to avoid or eliminate. A Stoic sees obstacles as opportunities to strengthen exactly the qualities we need most. The difficult conversation you're avoiding, it's teaching you courage. The project that keeps hitting complications, it's teaching you resilience. The person who challenges your ideas, they're teaching you to refine your thinking. The setback that disrupted your plans, it's teaching you adaptability. Every obstacle contains the seeds of its own solution, but only if you approach it correctly. When barbarian tribes threatened Rome's borders, I could have seen them only as problems to eliminate. Instead, I saw them as tests of our military strategy, our diplomatic skills, our ability to defend what we valued most. Some conflicts were resolved through negotiation. Others required military action. All of them strengthened Rome's capacity to handle future challenges. The obstacle forced us to become more skilled, more unified, more clear about our priorities. This is how obstacles work when you understand their true purpose. They don't exist to stop you. They exist to develop you. The skills you need to overcome today's challenges are exactly the skills you'll need for tomorrow's opportunities. The patience required to deal with difficult people prepares you to lead effectively. The creativity demanded by resource limitations prepares you to innovate when resources are abundant. The persistence needed to push through setbacks prepares you to sustain success when it comes. But here's what most people don't understand about turning obstacles into advantages. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this problem?" ask, "How do I use this problem to become stronger?" Instead of thinking, "This shouldn't be happening," think, "This is happening for a reason, and I need to discover what that reason might be." Instead of complaining, "Why is this so difficult?" try asking, "What is this difficulty teaching me that I couldn't learn any other way?" This isn't positive thinking. This is strategic thinking. You acknowledge that the obstacle is real and challenging. Then you look for ways to extract value from the challenge instead of just enduring it. Your business faces unexpected competition. You can spend your energy resenting the competitors, or you can use their presence to sharpen your own value proposition, improve your service, and clarify your unique strengths. Your relationship hits a rough patch. You can spend your time wishing things were easier, or you can use the difficulties to learn better communication, deeper empathy, and stronger commitment. Your health requires significant lifestyle changes. You can spend your mental energy mourning your old habits, or you can use the constraints to discover new sources of energy, better priorities, and increased appreciation for what your body can do. The obstacle becomes the path forward instead of the barrier blocking progress. But let me ask you this. What obstacles in your life right now are you treating as pure negatives? What challenges are you enduring instead of learning from? Every frustration contains information about what matters to you. Every difficulty reveals an area where you can develop greater strength. Every setback shows you assumptions that need updating. The key is to engage with obstacles actively rather than just surviving them passively. When you encounter resistance, get curious. What is this resistance protecting? What is it trying to teach you? What skills is it asking you to develop? When plans don't work out, investigate. What assumptions were flawed? What factors did you not consider? What approach might work better? Next time, when people oppose your ideas, listen carefully. What concerns are they raising? What blind spots are they revealing? How can their objections help you strengthen your position? This requires emotional discipline. The initial response to obstacles is usually frustration, disappointment, or anger. These emotions are natural, but they're not useful for problem solving. Feel the emotions fully, then shift into strategic mode. The obstacle is here. It's real. Now what can you do with it? Sometimes you go around obstacles. Sometimes you go through them. Sometimes you use them as stepping stones to reach higher ground than you originally planned, but you never waste time pretending they shouldn't exist or waiting for them to disappear on their own. During the Antonine Plague, I could have spent my energy lamenting that epidemics exist or hoping the disease would simply vanish. Instead, I used the crisis to strengthen Rome's medical systems, improve disaster response protocols, and demonstrate steady leadership during uncertainty. The plague was the obstacle, but it was also the opportunity to show what Roman leadership looked like under extreme pressure. Your current obstacles are serving the same function. They're revealing what kind of person you become when things don't go according to plan. Do you become bitter or wise? Do you become weaker or stronger? Do you become more closed or more creative? The choice is yours, but the choice only exists. If you see obstacles as material to work with rather than problems to avoid, nothing worthwhile is achieved without encountering resistance. The resistance isn't proof you're on the wrong path. It's proof you're on a path that leads somewhere meaningful. Use every obstacle as training for the person you need to become. Let every challenge develop capacities you'll need for future opportunities. The way forward isn't around the obstacle. The way forward is through it, using it as the very foundation for your next level of growth. You are not defined by applause. You are defined by principle. Right now, you are probably making decisions based on what other people think, what they'll say about your choices, whether they'll approve of your direction, how they'll judge your success or failure. This is exhausting, and it's unnecessary. The moment you hand over authority for your self-worth to other people, you become enslaved to their opinions. Your confidence rises and falls based on their reactions. Your decisions become distorted by their expectations. You live their life, not yours. A Stoic understands that approval from others is pleasant when it comes, but it cannot be the foundation of your sense of worth. That foundation must come from something more reliable, your own integrity. You know whether you're acting according to your values. You know whether you're giving honest effort. You know whether you're treating people with respect. You know whether you're working toward meaningful goals. This knowledge is available to you immediately and constantly. It doesn't depend on other people's recognition or understanding. When I made difficult decisions as emperor, I could not wait for popular approval. Some policies that served Rome's long-term interests were unpopular in the short term. Some necessary military actions were criticized by those who didn't understand the strategic situation. If I had made decisions based on what would generate the most praise, I would have been a weak leader serving my own need for approval rather than Rome's need for wisdom. Instead, I made decisions based on what I believed was right after careful consideration of available information. Some decisions proved successful and were eventually praised. Others proved imperfect and were criticized, but my self-respect remained stable because it was based on the quality of my reasoning and the sincerity of my intentions, not on the variability of public opinion. But here's what most people don't understand about approval seeking. It doesn't actually get you the approval you're seeking. People sense desperation. They recognize when someone is performing for validation rather than acting from authentic conviction. This performance is less impressive than authenticity, not more impressive. The person who speaks their truth thoughtfully gets more respect than the person who says what they think others want to hear. The person who pursues meaningful work gets more admiration than the person who chases prestigious titles. The person who maintains consistent principles gets more trust than the person who adjusts their positions based on audience. Ironically, the best way to earn genuine respect is to stop trying to earn it and start trying to deserve it. But let me ask you this. How many of your current choices are being influenced by what you think other people expect? How much mental energy are you spending trying to manage other people's opinions of you? Most people live in constant performance mode. They dress to impress others rather than for their own comfort and confidence. They choose careers based on external prestige rather than internal satisfaction. They express opinions they think will be popular rather than opinions they actually hold. This creates an exhausting split between who they are and who they present themselves to be. A Stoic eliminates this split. We align our public actions with our private values. We say what we mean and mean what we say. We pursue goals that matter to us rather than goals that we think will impress others. This doesn't mean you become rude or inconsiderate. It means you become authentic and principled. You dress in a way that feels appropriate and comfortable to you. You speak honestly but respectfully. You pursue work that utilizes your talents in service of something meaningful. You stop exhausting yourself trying to be all things to all people and start focusing on being the right thing for yourself and those who depend on you. The freedom this creates is remarkable. You stop walking on eggshells around other people's potential reactions. You stop second-guessing every choice based on how it might be perceived. You make decisions based on your values and available information. You accept that some people will approve and others won't. You recognize that their approval or disapproval says more about their preferences than about your worth. This requires developing internal validation systems. Instead of asking, "Will this make people think well of me?" ask, "Will this make me think well of myself?" Instead of measuring success by recognition received, measure it by effort given and principles maintained. Instead of feeling deflated when others don't notice your achievements, feel satisfied by the growth and contribution the work provided. Your reputation is what other people think about you. Your character is who you actually are. Focus on character, and reputation will take care of itself over time. Some people will misunderstand your motivations. Some will criticize choices they don't have enough information to evaluate properly. Some will disapprove of directions that don't align with their personal preferences. This is inevitable and irrelevant. You cannot control other people's opinions, and you should not try. What you can control is the consistency between your actions and your values. What you can control is the sincerity of your effort and the thoughtfulness of your decisions. What you can control is treating people with dignity regardless of whether they reciprocate. What you can control is pursuing work that contributes something meaningful regardless of whether everyone recognizes its value. This is the path to unshakable confidence. Not confidence based on external validation, but confidence based on internal alignment. You know you're living according to your principles. You know you're giving honest effort toward meaningful goals. You know you're treating people well and contributing something worthwhile. This knowledge doesn't depend on anyone else's acknowledgement. It's yours to access anytime, anywhere. When criticism comes, you can evaluate whether it contains useful information without taking it as a judgment of your worth. When praise comes, you can appreciate it without becoming dependent on it. You become like a tree rooted deeply in good soil. Weather changes, seasons change, but your foundation remains solid. Stop performing for an audience that may not even be paying attention. Start living for principles that will guide you regardless of who's watching. The respect you seek from others begins with the respect you give yourself, and that respect is earned through the daily choice to act with integrity, courage, and wisdom, whether anyone notices or not. Power is not loud. It listens. It thinks. Then it acts with precision. Most people talk too much and listen too little. They fill silence with words instead of wisdom. They react immediately instead of responding thoughtfully. They mistake volume for authority and frequency for importance. This is weak communication, disguised as strong communication. True power speaks sparingly and listens carefully. It observes patterns before drawing conclusions. It asks questions before offering answers. It understands that influence comes from precision, not volume. When I held audiences as emperor, I would often say very little during the first part of each meeting. I would listen to what people brought to me. I would observe not just their words, but their body language, their underlying concerns, their unstated assumptions. This careful observation gave me information that immediate responses would have missed. It allowed me to understand the real issues beneath the presented problems. It helped me craft responses that addressed root causes rather than surface symptoms. The senators who spoke first and most often were rarely the ones with the best insights. The advisors who listened longest and spoke most precisely were usually the ones worth hearing. Power doesn't need to announce itself constantly. It demonstrates itself through wise action when action is needed. But here's what most people don't understand about strategic communication. Speaking less doesn't mean having less influence. It means having more focused influence. When you speak frequently, people start to tune out your words. When you speak rarely but meaningfully, people pay attention. When you react immediately to every situation, your responses become predictable and often unhelpful. When you pause to observe and think, your responses become more thoughtful and effective. When you fill every silence with words, you miss opportunities to hear what others are really saying. When you're comfortable with silence, you gather information that talkers never receive. But let me ask you this. How often do you speak without first observing? How often do you react without first understanding? How often do you miss important information because you're too busy formulating what you'll say next? Most people are so eager to be heard that they forget to listen. They're so focused on expressing their own thoughts that they miss the opportunity to learn from others' perspectives. This creates conversations where people are talking past each other rather than with each other. Everyone speaks, but no one is heard. Everyone offers opinions, but no one gains understanding. A Stoic approaches conversation differently. We listen first to understand what is actually being communicated. We observe to understand the full context. We think before responding to ensure our words add value rather than just adding noise. This doesn't mean you become passive or withdrawn. It means you become strategic about when and how you engage. You ask clarifying questions before offering solutions. You acknowledge what you've heard before presenting alternative perspectives. You pause to consider whether your contribution will actually help the situation. The result is that when you do speak, people listen. Your words carry weight because they're carefully chosen. Your opinions matter because they're thoughtfully formed. This practice transforms your relationships. Instead of competing for airtime, you create space for real understanding. Instead of rushing to judgment, you gather information that leads to better decisions. People start seeking your perspective because they know it will be measured and insightful. They start trusting your judgment because your responses demonstrate that you've understood their situation clearly. This requires developing comfort with silence. Most people find silence uncomfortable and rush to fill it with words, but silence is where observation happens. Silence is where people reveal things they wouldn't say if you were constantly talking. Silence is where you process what you've heard and consider the best response. Learn to see silence as a tool rather than a problem. Use it to observe, to think, to understand what's really happening in any situation. When someone finishes speaking, pause before responding. Ask yourself, what did they really just tell me? What are they hoping to achieve with this conversation? What would be most helpful for me to contribute right now? Sometimes the most helpful contribution is another question that helps them think through their situation more clearly. Sometimes it's acknowledgement that shows you understand their perspective. Sometimes it's practical advice based on your experience. But you can only make these distinctions if you've listened and observed carefully first. This approach also protects you from common communication mistakes. You're less likely to misunderstand what someone meant. You're less likely to offer solutions to problems that don't actually exist. You're less likely to say things you later regret. You become known as someone who understands before trying to be understood, someone who thinks before speaking, someone whose words have substance because they're based on careful observation rather than quick reaction. This is particularly powerful in conflict situations, when others are escalating emotionally. Your calm observation and measured responses can actually de-escalate tension. When others are speaking from emotion, your thoughtful questions can help them access their own wisdom. You become a stabilizing presence in chaotic situations, not by talking louder, but by thinking clearer. Watch how the most effective people in your life communicate. They probably ask good questions. They probably listen more than they speak. They probably pause to think before responding to important matters. This isn't because they lack opinions or confidence. It's because they understand that influence comes from precision, not frequency. Master this principle, and you'll find that people start coming to you with important decisions. They'll seek your perspective on complex situations. They'll trust you with sensitive information, not because you have all the answers, but because you ask the right questions and listen carefully to the responses. Power speaks when it has something valuable to say. The rest of the time it observes, learns, and prepares for the moment when its voice will matter most. Speak little, observe much, think clearly, respond wisely. This is how you build influence that lasts. Every pause strengthens you. Every impulse resisted becomes a win. Between stimulus and response lies your power. Most people collapse this space and react immediately to whatever happens. They feel insulted and immediately defend. They feel frustrated and immediately complain. They feel excited and immediately act. This instant reaction eliminates choice. It turns you into a predictable machine. Input triggers automatic output. Others can control your behavior simply by knowing which buttons to push. A Stoic understands that the pause between what happens and how you respond contains your freedom. In that pause, you can choose your reaction based on wisdom rather than impulse. Someone criticizes your work. Your immediate impulse might be to defend yourself or criticize them back. But in the pause, you can ask, is there useful feedback in this criticism? What response would actually improve the situation? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my principles? Your flight gets canceled. Your immediate impulse might be to get angry at the airline staff, but in the pause you can ask, what are my actual options here? How can I use this unexpected time productively? What's the most efficient way to solve this problem? You receive exciting news about an opportunity. Your immediate impulse might be to say yes immediately, but in the pause you can ask, does this opportunity align with my current goals? What would I need to sacrifice to pursue it? What information do I need before deciding? The pause gives you access to your full intelligence instead of just your immediate emotions. When I faced challenges as emperor, my initial emotional reactions were often not helpful for leadership. Anger at incompetent officials wouldn't improve their performance. Frustration with barbarian attacks wouldn't improve military strategy. Disappointment with policy results wouldn't improve future policies, but I learned to use the pause. I would feel the initial emotion, acknowledge it, then ask, what does effective leadership look like in this situation? What choice serves Rome's interests rather than just expressing my feelings? This practice didn't eliminate emotions. It prevented emotions from eliminating good judgment. But here's what most people don't understand about developing this pause. It requires training, like developing any other skill. You start small and build gradually. Begin with low-stakes situations. When someone makes a comment that irritates you slightly, practice pausing before responding. When you receive a text that creates mild anxiety, practice pausing before reacting. Notice the impulse to react immediately. Acknowledge it, then choose to wait just a few seconds before responding. In those seconds, ask yourself, what kind of response do I want to give here? What outcome am I hoping to create? This builds your capacity for longer pauses in higher stakes situations. The goal isn't to become slow or indecisive. The goal is to become intentional. Sometimes the best response is quick action. Sometimes it's patient observation. Sometimes it's no action at all. But the choice comes from wisdom, not impulse. This practice transforms your relationships. Instead of escalating conflicts through immediate reactions, you de-escalate them through thoughtful responses. Instead of saying things you later regret, you speak in ways you can respect later. People start trusting your judgment because your responses demonstrate that you think before you speak and act. They start coming to you with important decisions because they know you won't just react emotionally to complex situations. But let me ask you this. How often do you react immediately to situations without pausing to consider your options? How often do you say or do things in the heat of the moment that you later wish you had handled differently? Most people are controlled by their immediate reactions. They apologize frequently for things they said when they were angry, tired, or excited. They make commitments when they're enthusiastic that they struggle to keep. When enthusiasm fades, they live at the mercy of whatever emotion is strongest in the moment. The pause protects you from this volatility. It gives you consistent access to your values and principles rather than being controlled by fluctuating feelings. This doesn't mean you become cold or calculating. It means you become reliable. People know that your responses come from your deepest wisdom rather than your surface emotions. You develop what the Stoics called inner stability. External events still trigger initial emotions, but those emotions don't automatically control your actions. You feel angry, but you choose whether that anger serves constructive purposes. You feel afraid, but you choose whether that fear points to legitimate caution or irrational anxiety. You feel excited, but you choose whether that excitement should lead to immediate action or careful consideration. This is true power, not the power to control external events, but the power to choose your responses to external events. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen this capacity. Every time you resist the impulse to respond immediately, you increase your freedom for next time. The person who can delay their reaction has more options than the person who cannot. They can choose the timing of their response. They can choose the tone of their response. They can choose whether to respond at all. This isn't about becoming passive. This is about becoming strategic. You engage with situations when engagement serves your purposes, not just when emotions demand it. You have difficult conversations when you're prepared to have them constructively, not just when anger pushes you to have them reactively. You make important decisions when you have adequate information, not just when pressure demands immediate choices. You offer help when you can give it effectively, not just when guilt makes you feel obligated. The pause gives you back control over your own life. Instead of being pushed around by circumstances and emotions, you become the author of your responses. Practice this daily. Start with small moments. Build your capacity for larger ones. Notice when you feel the urge to check your phone immediately. When it buzzes, Pause. Ask yourself, is this urgent or just habitual? Choose when to look. Notice when someone says something that triggers defensiveness. Pause. Ask yourself, what are they actually trying to communicate? How can I respond in a way that improves understanding? Notice when you feel pressured to make quick decisions. Pause. Ask yourself, what information do I need? What are my real options? What choice aligns with my values? Each successful pause builds your confidence that you can handle whatever comes next. You stop fearing difficult situations because you know you'll respond wisely rather than just reactively. You develop unshakable calm because your peace doesn't depend on external events going smoothly. It depends on your capacity to handle any event with grace and wisdom. This is the foundation of Stoic strength, not the strength to prevent problems, but the strength to respond to problems in ways that reflect your highest character. The world will continue to present you with situations that trigger immediate emotional reactions. You cannot control this, but you can control the space between trigger and response. In that space lives your freedom. In that space lives your power. In that space lives your choice to be the person you want to be regardless of what anyone else does. Use it wisely. The Stoic belongs to the world, not just to himself. Contribution brings clarity. You exist within a larger system. Your family, your community, your society, your species. What serves the whole ultimately serves you. What harms the whole ultimately harms you. Most people live as if they are separate from these systems, pursuing their individual interests without considering their impact on the larger networks they belong to. This seems practical in the short term, but creates problems in the long term. The business that maximizes profit while destroying the environment will eventually face environmental consequences. The person who takes advantage of others will eventually face social consequences. The community that ignores its weakest members will eventually face systemic consequences. Everything is connected. Your well-being is intertwined with the well-being of the systems you're part of. A Stoic recognizes this interconnection and acts accordingly. We ask not just, what serves my immediate interests, but what serves the larger good of which I am a part? This isn't selfless sacrifice. This is enlightened self-interest. When the systems you belong to function well, you function well within them. When I served as emperor, I could have used my power purely for personal benefit, more luxury, more entertainment, more comfort. But I understood that my personal well-being depended on the strength and stability of Rome. Policies that strengthened Roman institutions strengthened my ability to lead effectively. Decisions that improved citizens' lives improved the stability of the empire. Actions that served the common good created the conditions in which my own life could have meaning and purpose. Serving the whole was the most practical way to serve myself. But here's what most people don't understand about this principle. Contributing to something larger than yourself doesn't diminish your importance. It increases your impact when you align your efforts with the needs of the systems you belong to. Your individual actions become amplified by collective momentum. You become part of something that achieves more than any individual could accomplish alone. The parent who raises children with strong character contributes to a generation that will build a better society. The teacher who educates students thoughtfully contributes to a more informed citizenry. The worker who does excellent work contributes to products and services that improve people's lives. Your individual contribution matters precisely because it serves something larger than just you. But let me ask you this. How does your current work contribute to the larger systems you're part of? How do your daily choices impact the well-being of your family, your community, your society? Most people rarely consider these questions. They focus on immediate personal benefits without thinking about their role in the larger networks that sustain them. They take from these systems without giving back. They benefit from others' contributions without making their own. They assume that someone else will handle the responsibility for maintaining what they depend on. This is short-sighted and ultimately self-defeating. A Stoic takes responsibility for contributing to the health of the systems that support them. We pay our taxes honestly because civic institutions require funding to function. We vote thoughtfully because democratic systems require informed participation. We treat service workers respectfully because economic systems function better when people treat each other with dignity. We raise our children carefully because future society depends on the character of the next generation. We do our work excellently because economic prosperity depends on people fulfilling their roles effectively. We care for our environment because ecological health sustains all human activity. This isn't about grand gestures or heroic sacrifices. This is about recognizing that your daily choices either strengthen or weaken the systems you rely on. Every interaction is an opportunity to contribute to the kind of community you want to live in. Every transaction is an opportunity to support the kind of economy you want to participate in. Every conversation is an opportunity to contribute to the kind of culture you want to be part of. This perspective transforms how you experience your role in the world. Instead of feeling isolated or insignificant, you feel connected to something larger and more durable than your individual life. Your work becomes service. Your relationships become contributions to a community. Your choices become investments in the kind of world you want to exist. This doesn't mean you ignore your own needs or interests. It means you understand that your genuine long-term interests align with the health of the larger systems you belong to. You can't thrive in a dysfunctional family, a broken community, or a failing society. Your individual flourishing depends on collective flourishing. This understanding brings both humility and purpose. Humility because you recognize that you're part of something much larger than yourself. Purpose because you recognize that your part matters to the functioning of the whole. The company succeeds when each person does their role excellently. The family flourishes when each member contributes to the common good. The society prospers when citizens balance individual freedom with collective responsibility. You become more powerful by recognizing your dependence on others and their dependence on you. You become more significant by accepting your role in maintaining what you inherit and improving what you pass on. This is how meaning is built, not through accumulating individual achievements, but through contributing to achievements that last beyond individual lifetimes. The institutions you strengthen will outlast you. The relationships you invest in will influence people you'll never meet. The principles you embody will spread through networks you can't even see. Your individual life gains weight by being part of something substantial. Your daily choices gain importance by serving purposes larger than immediate gratification. Look for ways to serve the whole through your individual talents and opportunities. Use your skills to solve problems that matter. Treat people in ways that strengthen the social fabric. Make choices that contribute to the kind of world you want to live in. You belong to the world. Let the world benefit from belonging to you. Train daily. Refocus often. Let nothing pull you from your core. Every morning, you wake up with a choice. You can begin this day with intention and purpose, or you can let this day happen to you randomly. You can maintain the mental clarity you've built through practice, or you can let it dissolve in the chaos of immediate demands. Most people choose chaos by default. They start their day reacting to notifications, emails, and other people's priorities. They let their mental state be determined by external circumstances rather than internal discipline. By noon, they've lost whatever clarity they had. By evening, they're exhausted from being pulled in directions they didn't choose. A Stoic chooses differently. We begin each day by reconnecting with our principles, refocusing on our priorities, and strengthening our commitment to live according to our deepest values. This requires daily practice. Mental clarity is not an achievement you reach once. It's a condition you maintain through consistent effort. Every morning as emperor, I would spend time in reflection before attending to the demands of leadership. I would remind myself of Stoic principles, consider how to apply them to the day's challenges, and strengthen my resolve to act with wisdom regardless of external pressures. This daily practice kept me centered during the inevitable storms of political life. When senators disagreed with my policies, when citizens complained about necessary hardships, when military campaigns faced setbacks, I had a core of stability to return to, not because nothing could disturb me, but because I had daily strengthened my capacity to handle disturbance without losing my principles. But here's what most people don't understand about mental training. It's like physical training. Miss too many days, and you lose strength. Stay consistent, and you build resilience that carries you through difficult periods. You wouldn't expect to maintain physical fitness without regular exercise. Don't expect to maintain mental clarity without regular practice. This practice doesn't require hours. It requires consistency. 10 minutes each morning spent reconnecting with your values and priorities can transform how you experience the entire day. You can remind yourself what matters most to you. You can prepare mentally for likely challenges. You can visualize yourself responding to difficulties with grace and wisdom rather than just reacting emotionally. But let me ask you this. How do you currently start your days? Do you begin with intention or reaction? Do you connect with your deeper purposes or immediately get pulled into external demands? Most people check their phones within minutes of waking up. They let other people's messages and notifications determine their initial mental state. They start their day in reactive mode and wonder why they feel scattered and stressed. A Stoic starts differently. We connect with our internal guidance system before engaging with external demands. We remind ourselves who we want to be today, before we get pulled into what we need to do today. This creates a foundation of stability that external events cannot shake. You know what matters most to you. You've prepared mentally for challenges. You've connected with the principles that guide your choices when difficulties arise. You don't have to figure out how to respond from scratch. You've already strengthened your commitment to respond with virtue. You've already practiced accessing your wisdom under pressure. This daily practice also includes evening reflection. Before sleep, you review the day. What went well? What could have been handled better? What lessons can you extract from today's experiences? This isn't self-criticism. This is self-improvement. You're training yourself to learn from every experience and to approach tomorrow with greater wisdom. You notice patterns in your responses. You identify triggers that tend to pull you away from your principles. You celebrate moments when you handle challenges well. You plan adjustments for similar situations in the future. This combination of morning preparation and evening reflection creates a cycle of continuous improvement. You start each day more prepared than the last. You end each day wiser than you began it. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Every day you practice maintaining clarity under pressure, you become more skilled at it. Every day you choose principles over impulses, you strengthen that capacity. This requires protecting your mental environment just as carefully as you would protect your physical environment. You wouldn't live in a house filled with toxic fumes. Don't live in a mental environment filled with toxic inputs. Be selective about what you read, watch, and listen to. Choose information sources that inform rather than inflame. Seek content that challenges you to think more clearly rather than content that confirms your biases without adding wisdom. Surround yourself with people who support your growth rather than people who undermine your principles. Spend time with those who inspire you to be your best self, rather than those who enable your worst tendencies. This isn't about avoiding all difficulty or surrounding yourself only with agreeable people. This is about being strategic with your mental inputs so that you maintain the clarity needed to handle any difficulty wisely. Your mind is your most important tool. Keep it sharp through daily practice. Keep it clear through careful input selection. Keep it strong through regular challenges that develop your capacity. When external storms arise, You want to face them from a position of internal strength. When difficult decisions are required, you want to have access to your full wisdom. When others are losing their composure, you want to remain centered and helpful. This capacity is built daily through small practices. Morning reflection. Evening review. Careful attention to mental inputs. Regular return to core principles. The world will always try to pull you away from your center. Urgent demands will compete with important priorities. Emotional triggers will compete with rational responses. Other people's agendas will compete with your values. Your job is to remain rooted in what matters most while engaging fully with what each day brings. This requires both flexibility and stability. Flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. Stability to maintain your principles regardless of circumstances. Train daily. The stronger your mental foundation, the more effectively you can serve whatever life asks of you. The clearer your thinking, the better your choices. The steadier your character, the more others can rely on you when they need strength. This is how you build a life that can weather any storm while contributing something meaningful to the world. Strip it all down. What matters most is always less than you think. You are drowning in complexity. Too many choices, too many possessions, too many commitments, too many distractions. You have mistaken more for better, busy for productive, complicated for sophisticated. This complexity is stealing your peace and diminishing your power. Every additional thing you own requires mental energy to maintain. Every additional commitment fragments your attention. Every additional option creates additional decision fatigue. The person with 50 shirts spends more time deciding what to wear than the person with 5 good shirts. The person with 20 social obligations has less energy for meaningful relationships than the person with 5 deep friendships. More is not better. Clearer is better. A Stoic understands that power comes from focus, not accumulation. We strip away everything that doesn't serve our essential purposes so we can give full attention to what does. When I served as emperor, I could have filled my days with elaborate ceremonies, countless meetings, and endless luxuries. Roman wealth could have provided any comfort or entertainment I desired, but complexity would have weakened my leadership. Time spent on non-essential activities was time not spent on governing well. Energy directed toward personal indulgence was energy not directed toward Rome's needs. I chose simplicity not as deprivation, but as strategy. Fewer possessions meant less to maintain and protect. Fewer commitments meant more focus on essential duties. Simpler routines meant more mental energy for important decisions. This simplicity increased my effectiveness rather than limiting it. But here's what most people don't understand about simplicity. It's not about having less of everything. It's about having more of what matters by having less of what doesn't. The goal is not to live in poverty. The goal is to live with precision. You eliminate things that drain your energy without adding value so you can invest fully in things that align with your priorities. But let me ask you this. What in your current life is complex without being valuable? What possessions do you maintain but rarely use? What commitments consume time without serving your goals? What activities fill your schedule without filling your life with meaning? Most people accumulate complexity gradually. They say yes to opportunities that seem good in isolation without considering their cumulative impact. They acquire possessions that serve temporary desires without thinking about long-term maintenance costs. They end up with lives that are full but not fulfilling, busy but not productive. A Stoic approaches this differently. We regularly audit our commitments, possessions, and activities. We ask, does this serve my essential purposes? Does this contribute to what I'm trying to build? Does this deserve the time and energy it requires? If the answer is no, we eliminate it. Not because it's bad, but because keeping it prevents us from fully engaging with what is better. You can have a beautiful home or beautiful experiences, but not both beautiful homes and constant beautiful experiences and beautiful clothes and beautiful cars and beautiful everything. Your attention and resources are finite. Choose what deserves your investment. Let go of everything else. This requires developing comfort with having less than you could have. The wealthy person who chooses to live modestly. The busy person who chooses to do fewer things excellently rather than many things adequately. This isn't about appearing humble or rejecting success. This is about being strategic with your limited time and energy. The person with clear priorities can make decisions quickly. The person with simple systems can operate efficiently. The person with focused commitments can give their best effort to what they choose to pursue. Simplicity creates freedom. Freedom from maintenance, freedom from decision fatigue, freedom from the anxiety that comes with protecting and managing too many things. This freedom allows you to be present. When you're not constantly managing complexity, you can pay attention to what's happening now. When you're not juggling endless commitments, you can engage fully with the people and activities in front of you. The conversation you're having receives your complete attention because you're not thinking about 15 other obligations. The work you're doing receives your best effort because you're not spreading that effort across too many projects. The relationship you're investing in receives your genuine care because you're not trying to maintain superficial connections with everyone you've ever met. This presence makes everything more satisfying. Simple meals taste better when you're paying attention. Basic activities become more enjoyable when you're not distracted. Ordinary moments become meaningful when you're fully experiencing them. The key is learning to distinguish between what you want and what you want to want. You might want to own every interesting book, but you want to read thoughtfully and deeply. You might want to attend every social event, but you want meaningful relationships. Focus on what you actually want to want. Let go of desires that distract from your deeper intentions. This requires saying no to good things so you can say yes to great things. It requires disappointing some people so you can serve others excellently. It requires missing some opportunities so you can fully capitalize on the opportunities that align with your purpose. The complexity in your life right now is probably not all necessary. Much of it is probably habit, social pressure, or fear of missing out rather than genuine contribution to your goals. Start removing what doesn't serve you. One possession, one commitment, one activity at a time. Notice how each elimination creates space for what matters more. You don't need elaborate systems to organize your life if your life contains only what belongs there. You don't need complex schedules if you're only doing things that deserve your time. You don't need extensive storage if you only own things you actually use and value. Simplicity is not sacrifice. Simplicity is precision. It's the difference between a cluttered room where you can't find anything and a clean room where everything has its place. It's the difference between a scattered life where you're constantly busy but rarely effective, and a focused life where your energy creates meaningful results. Strip away everything that doesn't serve your essential purposes. What remains will be more powerful than everything you started with. Knowledge without action is self-deception. Make these principles visible in your life. You can read every Stoic text ever written. You can memorize every principle, understand every concept, discuss every nuance of philosophical theory, and still live exactly the same way you lived before. Knowledge that doesn't change behavior is not wisdom, it's entertainment. The purpose of studying Stoicism is not to become a scholar of Stoicism. The purpose is to become a person who embodies Stoic principles in daily life. This requires moving from understanding to practice, from theory to application, from knowing what you should do to actually doing it. Most people treat philosophy like they treat entertainment. They consume it passively, appreciate it intellectually, then continue living according to their old patterns. They collect insights without implementing changes. A Stoic approaches philosophy as training, not entertainment. We study principles in order to apply them. We read about virtue in order to practice virtue. We understand concepts in order to use them when life tests us. When I studied Stoic teachings, I wasn't trying to impress other philosophers with my understanding. I was trying to become a better emperor, a better leader, a better person. The test of my learning was not what I could explain, but how I handled actual challenges. Did I remain calm under pressure? Did I make decisions based on principle rather than emotion? Did I treat people with justice regardless of their status? Did I accept setbacks without losing focus on what I could control? These behaviors, not my theoretical knowledge, determined whether I was actually learning from Stoic teachings. But here's what most people don't understand about philosophical practice. It requires deliberate effort to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. You can understand that you should control your reactions to criticism, but actually pausing before responding when someone attacks your work requires practice. You can understand that you should focus on what you can control, but actually letting go of anxiety about outcomes requires daily application. You can understand that obstacles can strengthen you, but actually finding ways to grow from difficulties requires looking for those opportunities when you're facing real problems. The concepts are simple. The application is challenging, but let me ask you this. How are you currently applying Stoic principles in your daily life? What specific behaviors have changed since you began learning about Stoicism? How would someone who knows you well be able to tell that you've been studying these ideas? Most people who study philosophy can't answer these questions clearly. They've gained knowledge without gaining transformation. Real learning shows up in behavior. Real wisdom shows up in choices. Real understanding shows up in how you handle situations that test your character. Start with one principle and practice them. It consistently until it becomes natural. Then add another. Build your Stoic practice gradually but deliberately. Maybe you start with the pause between stimulus and response. Every time someone says something that triggers an immediate emotional reaction, you practice pausing before responding. You notice the trigger, acknowledge the emotion, then choose your response based on your values rather than your impulse. Practice this until it becomes automatic, until you no longer react immediately to provocations, until people start noticing that you don't get rattled easily. Then add another practice, maybe focusing on what you can control. Every time you feel anxious or frustrated, you ask yourself, what here is actually within my influence? You redirect your energy toward what you can affect and let go of what you cannot. Practice this until it becomes natural, until you stop wasting energy on things outside your control, until you become known as someone who focuses on solutions rather than complaints. Then add another practice, maybe viewing obstacles as training. Every time you encounter a setback or difficulty, you ask, what is this teaching me? How can this make me stronger? What skills is this helping me develop? Practice this until challenges become opportunities for growth rather than reasons for frustration. Each principle practiced consistently changes how you experience life. The accumulation of these changes transforms who you are. This is how Stoicism works, not through perfect understanding of complex theories, but through imperfect but consistent application of simple principles. You don't need to become a perfect Stoic overnight. You need to become a practicing Stoic today. Start where you are, with what you understand, facing the actual challenges in your current life. Use your relationships as practice ground for patience and understanding. Use your work as practice ground for excellence and integrity. Use your difficulties as practice ground for resilience and wisdom. The people around you become your teachers. Difficult colleagues teach you how to remain professional under stress. Family conflicts teach you how to listen without becoming defensive. Unexpected problems teach you how to adapt without losing focus. Every situation becomes an opportunity to strengthen the qualities you're trying to develop. This requires shifting from passive learning to active training. Instead of just reading about how Stoics handle adversity, you look for ways to apply those strategies when you face your own adversity. Instead of just understanding intellectually that you should treat people with dignity, you practice treating people with dignity even when they're difficult. Instead of just knowing that you should pursue virtue over external rewards, you make choices based on what's right rather than what's advantageous. The gap between your current behavior and your ideal behavior becomes your training ground. Every day offers dozens of opportunities to practice becoming the person you want to be. The measure of your progress is not how much you know about Stoicism. The measure is how much your life reflects Stoic principles. Are you more calm in difficult situations than you were a year ago? Are you less controlled by external validation? Are you better at focusing your energy on what you can influence? These changes, accumulated over time, create a transformed life. Not perfect, but significantly improved. Not without challenges, but better equipped to handle them. This is the promise of Stoicism. Not that life becomes easy, but that you become stronger. Not that problems disappear, but that you become wiser in dealing with them. Make that promise real through daily practice. Take these principles from the page to your life. Let your behavior show the world what you've learned. Knowledge without application is just sophisticated ignorance. Don't collect wisdom. Live it. This path isn't easy. It's necessary. Walk it, and you'll know peace like few ever do. You have reached the end of these principles, but you stand at the beginning of a different kind of life. A life organized around what you can control rather than what you wish you could control. A life guided by virtue rather than driven by emotion. A life built for strength rather than comfort. This is not the path most people choose. Most people prefer the illusion of control to the reality of influence. They prefer the temporary relief of blame to the lasting power of responsibility. They prefer the familiar chaos of reaction to the unfamiliar calm of discipline. They choose the easier path in the moment and wonder why their lives feel so difficult over time. A Stoic chooses differently. We choose the harder path in the moment because it leads to an easier life over time. We choose difficulty that builds strength over comfort that breeds weakness. This choice requires courage. The courage to face reality without comforting delusions. The courage to take responsibility without excuses. The courage to live according to principles when principles conflict with immediate desires. But this courage is rewarded with something most people never experience: genuine peace of mind. Not the temporary peace that comes from having everything go your way, but the lasting peace that comes from knowing you can handle whatever doesn't go your way. Not the fragile peace that depends on external circumstances, but the unshakable peace that comes from internal strength. Not the passive peace that comes from avoiding all challenges, but the active peace that comes from meeting challenges with wisdom and grace. When I reflect on my years as emperor, I remember many difficult days, plagues, wars, political conflicts, personal losses. The external circumstances of leadership were often stressful and demanding, but I also remember a deep sense of calm that sustained me through all of it. The calm that came from knowing I was doing my best with the situation I had been given. The calm that came from focusing on my choices rather than my circumstances. The calm that came from building a life on principles rather than preferences. This calm is available to you, not because your external circumstances will become perfect, but because your internal responses can become skillful. The path to this calm requires everything you've learned in these